True home comfort isn't just a setting on your thermostat, it's how your whole home feels. It's more than just heating and cooling, it's peace of mind in every room.
At LCS Heating and Cooling, protecting that kind of comfort isn't just our job, it's our mission.
No matter what the weather brings, we'll do whatever it takes to keep your home feeling safe and comfortable.
You can count on us to protect the comfort you've worked so hard to create. Your comfort, our mission.
Ready for takeoff? Discover what real comfort really feels like with LCS Heating and Cooling.
Outside the Forecast on WTHR Plus is sponsored by LCS Heating and Cooling.
How about some good news? We are halfway done with winter. When you're looking at average temperatures, they are starting to go back up. But what are we expecting as we wrap up the winter season and we're starting to flirt with spring? Let's take a look. This is your February 2026 outlook. What's February like? We're going to take a closer look and then kind of give you a preview of maybe what's ahead. But if you were to say, Matt, February has snow, it has clouds, it has cold, and a couple warm days, maybe towards the end of the month, you'd be pretty spot on here in Indiana. But let's put some numbers to it. Let's start with daylight change, the main driver of why we even get differing seasons throughout the year. Plus the sun angle, that makes a big difference as well. Over time, we are gaining more daylight, and the sun is getting higher in the sky so we can heat up a little bit better. This map shows you how much daylight you'll at least gain. So if you're in this solid orange color, at least an hour, all the way up to 70 minutes, but once you hit an hour and 10 minutes, then you go back to the red. So that's how this works. Farther north you go, more daylight you'll gain. Farther south, less daylight. But every single American will at least gain a half hour. Here in Indiana, we're gaining a full hour of extra daylight from February 1st to February 28th. 64 minutes here in Indianapolis, more towards South Bend. And then Evansville just sneaks in there at 1 hour, just barely, but technically we're at the extra hour. What about in Indianapolis for sunrises and sunsets? That's how we basically calculated all those. Well, sunrises are in the 7 o'clock hour. They'll stay in the 7 o'clock hour, but they'll get closer to 7 o'clock itself by the end of the month. For sunsets, we technically are in the 6 p.m. hour. So we saw that change at the very end of January. We'll end up with 6:30-ish sunsets later at the end of the month. That puts us in 1 hour and 4 minutes of daylight gain here in the city. February has our third biggest daylight gain of the year, even though it is our shortest month. March would be number one, right there at the spring equinox when we have our fastest daylight gain pace. Then it is April, and then February's right behind there. So we are gaining daylight, and eventually with more daylight and higher sun angles, we'll get more heat. However, we are still losing more heat than we are gaining in the winter time, and those cold fronts keep on coming from the source regions up north. But we will eventually start seeing some warmer air. I'll show you some of the temperature trends that we're expecting. But first, let's kind of take a look at the month. This is a fun one, full moons. This is a list of all your full moons that you'll get for 2026. We get 13 of them. This year there is a blue moon or a second full moon in the month of May. Here we are for February, just a normal moon, not a micro moon, not a super moon, not an eclipse or anything like that, but it's called the snow moon, very appropriate. We've picked up more snow this winter season in Indiana. At least for Indianapolis, the most snow we've had for a winter in over a decade. But most locations across the state are reporting more snow than average. We can see all the moons headed our way. So the full snow moon, February 1st to the 2nd, so it's the night of the 1st. It's also called the bear moon. It's interesting because bear cubs, depending on the species, start getting born in the month of February. Now, February 1st may be a little early, but this is the month that would typically happen, also known as the hungry moon because food is definitely scarce still in the winter time. Let's take a look at those temperatures though. We were talking about daylight gains. Well, you do see the result of that, starting with average highs in the 30s. But by the end of the month, we'll have average highs in the 40s, meaning our normal high, what we would expect would be in the 40s. Now, rarely you're going to hit the actual average. You'll be above or below. The first week or so of February looking pretty cold, near average or slightly below average. We'll have to see what the rest of the swings of the month bring. But we definitely started going into the month there at the end of January, ending January with some snow. Early February, probably still some snowpack. So we'll see what happens. It's still a snowy month. It's our third snowiest month, January being the snowiest month. Then it comes December, and February is a close third, 6 inches on average for Indianapolis. So in general, we're going to see more 40s than 30s when you just look at average highs, low 40s when you kind of average everything out. This is interesting. February is technically our driest month of the year. When we melt down all the snow chances, and then of course include rain chances, on average it's just shy of 2.5 inches of precipitation. So it's a drier month. Now you can get big snows, but of course snow doesn't have as much water in it when you're just comparing that to normal rainfall. But you can still get some good snows and some good water equivalent. So when we're looking at the sun angle, we go from 29 degrees in January to about 35 or 36 degrees for the sun angle. How high is it above the horizon in the month of February? So we're seeing that increase. This is about noon, solar noon, about mid-month. So about mid-month in February, we go from the 29 in January to those mid-30s, and that'll keep increasing. So you'll notice by the end of the month that the sun just gets higher there around noon throughout the day. And because the sun is higher and we have more daylight, you are talking about the UV index, but we don't really talk about it throughout the month of February. It did increase from a 1 to a 2. You're not really getting sunburnt. You got to go still farther to the south. However, in the month of March, you can start to get maybe a little color to your skin, especially by the end of the month. Folks starting to maybe do some outdoor yard work. So we're not quite there yet, but you can see the climb for the UV index. Now, February is one of our windier months. We're in the windy season, also the winter season. It's those cold northwest winds coming up over the lake, continue to give us clouds. As long as the lake is mainly ice-free, we're starting to see more ice, though, forming into the start of February. But there's a average wind speed at all times about 11.1 miles per hour. So we are definitely in the windy season. We're also in our cloudy season. However, the month of February, we start to see these statistics go back down. I mean, we are solidly in the cloudy season. It is a cloudy month. More days are cloudy or mostly cloudy than they are sunny, typically in the month of February. But we are at 58% chance, just of cloudy weather. Now it goes down to 57. It's a very slow step down. Eventually, we'll have more sunshine April and May, even though it is kind of our wet season, rain and thunderstorm chances, of course, when we get back into the spring season. But you also do have some sunny days, too. So we're trying to set the course right as we wrap up winter and head to spring. So still winter, still snow chances. How much snow do we typically get? This is your average snowfall for a winter season. Indianapolis is in that 20-inch band, so in the 20s. You can look at it that way. In the 30s for those inches once you get farther to the north in the purple, and a little bit less to the south. However, we have overperformed this year when it comes to snowfall. Indianapolis, when we're looking at the entirety of the snowfall season, we have picked up already 27.1 inches of snow as we're starting the month of February, and that could continue to increase with flurry chances at the beginning of the month. That's pretty good. Look at the line. Last time we've been this snowy, technically, was the winter of 13 into 14. It's been a second. We are now above average, just barely, but we are now above average for that seasonal snowfall. And at the end of January, look at the snow and ice pack that we had. We had that big winter storm, January 24th, 25th, and the 26th, and that's why you see the snowpack to end January and start February going all the way south to Texas, right through Indiana, through the Northeast, all the way up north to Alaska and to the North Pole. It is solid ice or snow out there. But eventually warmer weather is on the way. February starts to become a little bit more of a transitional month. It's typically still dominated by cold air and wintry weather chances, but we really have to watch out for warm fronts this time of year. How warm can we get? Sometimes you'll be surprised by how temperatures can jump into some 50s and 60s or so. The problem is when you do that and you get a quick break from winter, there's always a cold front coming in. You cannot sustain big warm-ups for very long. In fact, across the deep south, it is tornado season. It's already starting to begin in the month of February. Those severe weather chances do start to increase. We're not even in a category. However, it's not out of question. When you're in the very low category, you can at least expect maybe a couple storm chances in February. We always don't get thunderstorms in the month, but it's definitely possible here in Indiana. It's been done before. We've had tornadoes in the month of February, but typically most of the severe weather is towards the south. What you'll see as the spring months come in, You'll have a bullseye in the deep south, but gradually it will kind of expand and then eventually weaken in the deep south. But then we'll have a good cluster of severe weather chances. The plains will as well. Severe weather season definitely wakes up typically into March and into April. But we actually have an average number of tornadoes in February. When you look back from 2000 to 2024, on average, we can expect at least one across the state. Of course, definitely more of a trend to the south, and these numbers will quickly go up as the spring continues on. All right, so that was just kind of a look. What is February typically like? It's cold, still be snowy, maybe some warm days, maybe a couple days you start thinking maybe spring is coming, and then you get slapped with another cold front. Okay, that's what February is like. What about this month? What are the trends that we are seeing? Well, January ended super cold and snowy, and we're still kind of going to be in the hangover for the first week of February with near or colder than average weather. When we take a look at the rest of the month, we honestly don't have a great idea. Sometimes we have a signal showing, hey, February looks colder this time around, or it looks warmer. This time we've got kind of equal chances. There's really not a trend either way, which a lot of times will mean you're going to get a lot of swings, but when you average all the swings out from super cold to super warm, you kind of put those together and the month may kind of just average out, which happens a lot too. We are generally expecting a slightly higher chance of colder than normal weather up to the north. Now, what that could do is if we call these source regions, the prairie pothole region, north well into Canada, these are areas that really build the cold air on that nice, cold, icy snowpack that's out there, which we have starting February. But you get it really thick up to the north. It creates this cold air as heat escapes. And then once you have so much cold air, eventually it spills off to the south. And so if that continues that trend, we could at least theoretically be experiencing a decent amount of cold fronts coming on through with ranging strengths. Sometimes they're clippers and sometimes they're pretty strong fronts. Now, when we're looking at precipitation chances, there is a slight trend to have above average precipitation here, really not just in Indiana, but across the Great Lakes. And this is something that we do typically see in more of a La Nina pattern, although our La Nina pattern does look like it's still weakening. It's been weak overall, and it still may weaken, kind of go towards a neutral phase. We'll see how we end the month of February, but this would be typical. We've been above average for precipitation, at least for snowfall, across the Great Lakes, and we may continue that trend for the rest of February, especially if we keep on track with these fronts coming in. Weak ones, strong ones, they could all come to Indiana and mess with our weather. But it will be a cold month. We're almost getting through winter. Officially, spring will begin there at the spring equinox, mid to late March. Meteorological winter, we also go with that. That begins March 1st. So still solidly winter, but there are cracks in our winter season forming.
Outside the Forecast on WTHR Plus is sponsored by LCS Heating and Cooling.